weight of a promise. It was heavier than the spools of 12-gauge copper wire he hoisted over his shoulder every day, more unyielding than the steel-toed boots he laced up at 5:17 a.m. He was an electrician, a man who worked with his hands, earning a steady, if not spectacular, $61,000 a year. It was an honest living that paid for the $1,200 a month rent on their modest duplex in Charlotte's Beatties Ford neighborhood, kept food on the table, and ensured his 8-year-old daughter, Nyla, had everything she truly needed. But lately, the weight of his promises felt crushing, because he was beginning to suspect he was the only one carrying them. The silence from his wife Simone had grown into a presence of its own, a cold draft in their small home that no amount of insulation could fix. He felt a deep, gnawing dread that the life he had been building, wire by careful wire, was connected to a faulty circuit, ready to burn out at any moment. He just had no idea how right he was. We all know someone like Darnell, a good person working hard for their family, who deserves loyalty and love. But what happens when the person closest to them is living a lie? Stick with us on Love Beyond Pride to see how one man's quiet strength exposed a devastating betrayal and built a future he never imagined. The facade of their life was built on a foundation of seemingly shared sacrifices. Their duplex, nestled on a quiet street off Beatties Ford Road, was humble but clean. Darnell had spent a weekend repainting the living room a warm, buttery yellow, a $40 gallon of Behr paint transforming the space. He'd fixed the leaky faucet under the kitchen sink himself, saving them a $200 plumber's fee. He was proud of these small acts of service. They were his love language, tangible proof of his commitment. He remembered a Saturday 2 years prior, standing in an Ashley home store, looking at a comfortable, gray sectional sofa. It was on sale for $899. Neela had jumped on the cushions, her beautiful dark coils bouncing, held back by 2 bright pink barrettes. "Can we get it, Daddy? It's so bouncy." Darnell had looked at Simone, a hopeful smile on his face. "What do you think, babe? We could finally get rid of that old floral thing." Simone, who was scrolling through her phone, glanced up, her expression unreadable. She was wearing a pair of jeans that cost $150 and a simple-looking white blouse he later found out was a $250 piece from Theory. "Darnell, really? An $899 sofa? We just don't have that kind of money floating around. You know how tight things are." She'd sighed, a theatrical sound of martyrdom. "We have to be saving for the future. For Neela." He had felt a familiar pang of guilt and inadequacy. She was right, of course. She handled the big-picture finances, managing their joint savings account, where a portion of his weekly paycheck was automatically deposited. He trusted her completely. You're right," he'd said, his shoulders slumping slightly. He scooped Nyla into his arms. "Sorry, sweetie. The old couch is still pretty good, right?" Neela, ever agreeable, had nodded, but he saw the flicker of disappointment in her eyes. They left the store empty-handed. Darnell didn't know then that just 3 days earlier, a transaction for $1,250 had been debited from that same joint savings account, not for a bill, but for a custom walk-in closet system from the Container Store. A closet he would never see. Their life was a tapestry of these small, dollar-tagged details. He wore the same $89 Timex watch he'd had for 5 years, its leather band worn smooth. Simone, however, had a collection of purses. There was the $450 Tory Burch tote she used for work, the $300 Kate Spade crossbody for weekends. When he'd once asked about it, she'd waved a dismissive hand. "It was a gift," she'd say, or "I got it at an outlet sale." He never questioned it. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe in the team he thought they were. He would get up in the dark, pack Nyla's lunch, A sandwich, a juice box, an apple, maybe a small bag of chips, all from their $180 weekly grocery run to Food Lion, and leave a cup of coffee on the counter for Simone. He'd work a 10-hour day, his body aching from climbing ladders and pulling cable, and come home to find Simone on her laptop at the small kitchen table. "Long day?" he'd ask. "You have no idea," she'd reply, her eyes never leaving the screen. She was a senior risk analyst at a major downtown bank, a job that came with a lot of stress, she said. He admired her intelligence, her ambition. She was the one with the corporate career, the one who navigated a world of glass towers and conference calls he couldn't imagine. He saw his role as providing the stable ground for her to launch from. Their two worlds were supposed to complement each other, his physical labor and her mental acuity, his $61,000 salary and her more substantial, though undisclosed income, all pouring into the same pot for the same family. It was a beautiful idea, and it was a complete and utter lie. The pot was a sieve, and everything he poured into it was draining away into a life he wasn't a part of. The outrage didn't accumulate all at once. It was a slow poison, administered in small, daily doses of cruelty and dismissal. The little cuts, the subtle humiliations began to stack up until Darnell felt like he was bleeding from 1,000 tiny wounds. Simone's condescension had become a constant, grating noise in the background of his life. One evening they had friends over, another couple from the neighborhood, for a simple backyard barbecue. Darnell was at the grill, a $150 charbroil he'd assembled himself, flipping burgers. He was talking about a complex wiring job he'd just completed at a new construction site, his deep brown skin luminous in the golden hour light, his face animated with the pride of a craftsman. "It was a 3-phase system, 480 volts, he explained, his hands gesturing to illustrate the layout. "The foreman was impressed we got it done a day ahead of schedule." From the patio table, Simone let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't a shared laugh. It was a correcting one. "Oh, Darnell," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "don't bore them with your work stories. It's just wires and switches." She turned to her friend, Lisa. "His job is so physical, I can't imagine. At the bank, we're dealing with billion-dollar portfolios. The stakes are just a little different." The air went still. Darnell's smile froze on his face. He felt the heat from the grill on his skin, but a cold shame washed over him. He looked down at his hands, calloused and clean, the hands that paid for the food on her plate, and felt them dismissed as crude and unimportant. He said nothing, just flipped a burger with a little too much force. The incident passed, but the sting of her words, just wires and switches, lingered for weeks. Then came the work trips. They started about 4 years ago, maybe once a quarter. A conference in Atlanta, a seminar in Raleigh. She would pack her $800 Rimowa carry-on suitcase, kiss him and Nyla goodbye, and be gone for 3 or 4 days. He never thought to question it. Her career was demanding. He would handle things at home, managing school drop-offs in his 10-year-old Toyota Camry, making sure Nyla's hair was neatly twisted and beaded each morning, a ritual he had learned from YouTube tutorials after his own mother, his mama, passed away. He was proud to be a capable father, but the trips became more frequent. Soon it was once a month. Then there were the late nights at the office and dinners with clients. He started noticing a change in her. She bought a new perfume, a scent he didn't recognize, something expensive and floral that clung to her clothes. It was Chanel No. 5, a $165 bottle of it. She started going to a different gym, a high-end fitness club in South Park called Equinox, with a membership fee of $220 a month. "They have better classes," she'd explained, "and it's good for networking." One Friday night, she was getting ready to go out with the girls from work. She was standing in front of the bedroom mirror in a stunning black dress, a $600 garment from a designer he'd never heard of. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You look beautiful," he said softly, trying to feel a connection that was increasingly frayed. She stiffened. She didn't lean back into his embrace. She just patted his hand absently. "Thanks," she said, her eyes fixed on her own reflection. "Darnell, can you not? You'll wrinkle the fabric." She gently but firmly removed his hands. He stepped back, the rejection a physical blow. As she was grabbing her purse, her phone, a brand new $1,100 iPhone, lit up on the dresser. A text message appeared on the screen for a fleeting second before she snatched it up. He only saw a name, Alex, and a string of heart emojis. "Who's Alex?" he asked, his voice quiet. Simone didn't miss a beat. Her face was a perfect mask of nonchalance. "Alexandra? She's a new VP in my division. We're all going out." She shoved the phone into her $450 purse. "Don't wait up." The door clicked shut behind her, leaving Darnell in a silence that was louder than any argument. He knew, in the pit of his stomach, that Alex was not an Alexandra. But to confront her without proof felt like stepping off a cliff. What could he say? That he saw a name and some emojis? She would laugh at him, call him paranoid, insecure. She would twist it until he was the one apologizing. He had seen her do it before. The final, most brutal cut came on their anniversary. He had saved for 2 months, pulling extra weekend shifts to buy her a delicate gold necklace with Nyla's birthstone. It cost him $550, a significant sum that he was proud to spend on her. He made reservations at a nice, but not extravagant Italian restaurant downtown. He even bought a new shirt for himself, a crisp button-down from Belk for $65. He gave her the gift over dinner. She opened the small box, looked at the necklace, and gave him a thin, polite smile. "Oh," she said. "That's sweet, Darnell." She didn't put it on. She just placed the box beside her plate. "Do you like it?" he asked, his hope dwindling. "It's nice," she said, taking a sip of her $14 glass of wine. Then she delivered the blow, wrapped in a casual observation. "You know, my boss, Mr. Henderson, just bought his wife a diamond tennis bracelet for their anniversary from Tiffany's. I can't even imagine what that must have cost. Probably more than your car." She laughed, a light, airy sound that didn't reach her eyes. He looked at his $89 Timex. He looked at the $550 necklace sitting ignored on the table. He looked at her face, the face of the woman he had loved for 12 years. And for the first time, he didn't see his wife. He saw a stranger, a cruel stranger who measured his love in dollars and found it wanting. He felt a profound sense of outrage, a cold, hard anger that settled deep in his chest. It was the moment he stopped making excuses for her. It was the moment the love began to die, replaced by a grim, gathering resolve. He just didn't know what to do with it. Not yet. The discovery came on a gray, drizzly Saturday in late October, the kind of day that forces you indoors. Rain slicked the windows of the duplex, and the sky was the color of wet concrete. With a football game droning on the TV in the background, Darnell decided to tackle the hall closet, a cramped space that had become a graveyard for old coats, mismatched shoes, and forgotten junk. Nyla was at a friend's house for a birthday party, and Simone was, predictably, at a team-building retreat for the weekend. The quiet in the house felt both peaceful and unnerving. He pulled out old jackets, a bag of Nyla's outgrown shoes he'd been meaning to donate, and a stack of board games with missing pieces. In the very back, pushed onto a high shelf, was a beige trench coat. It was a classic, expensive-looking Burberry coat he remembered her buying 5 or 6 years ago. She'd claimed she got it for a steal at a consignment shop for $300, but he now suspected it was closer to its $1,800 retail price. She hadn't worn it in at least 2 years. As he lifted the coat off the shelf, something slipped from the inside pocket. It wasn't a soft flutter like a tissue, but a crisp, sharp sound as a folded piece of paper hit the hardwood floor. He bent down and picked it up. It was a receipt. Not a flimsy thermal paper receipt from a grocery store, but a thick cardstock invoice, professionally printed. His eyes scanned the details, and the world tilted on its axis. The company name at the top was the Regent at South Park. The date was from 8 months ago, February 12th. The line item description made the air leave his lungs. Condominium Unit 14G, security deposit. And next to it, the amount, $4,800, paid in full. The customer name was Simone Williams. His heart started hammering against his ribs, a frantic trapped bird. South Park. The neighborhood she was always finding excuses to go to. The neighborhood with the Equinox gym and the upscale boutiques. He stood there for a full minute, the receipt trembling in his hand. It made no sense. A security deposit? For what? Why would she pay a $4,800 deposit on a condo without even mentioning it? With shaking fingers, he pulled out his phone, a functional but aging Samsung Galaxy that cost him $200 2 years ago. He typed "The Regent at South Park" into the Google search bar. The results loaded instantly. The first link was to a glossy real estate website. He clicked it. He was met with images of a gleaming glass tower, a resort-style swimming pool, and a lobby that looked like a 5-star hotel. The marketing copy swam before his eyes. Charlotte's premier luxury living. Residences starting from the high 300s. He felt a wave of nausea. He scrolled through the gallery, his thumb moving numbly across the screen. He saw photos of sleek, modern kitchens with quartz countertops and stainless steel appliances. He saw minimalist living rooms with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city. He saw bedrooms with private balconies. It was a world away from their little duplex with its buttery yellow walls and mismatched furniture. He found the floor plans. Unit 14G, a 1-bedroom plus den, 980 square feet. Price, $389,000. Darnell sank down onto the floor of the hallway, the dusty coats piled around him. He leaned his head back against the wall, the cool drywall a stark contrast to the fire raging in his mind. $389,000. The number was astronomical, impossible. Where would that kind of money come from? They were a family that debated an $899 sofa. They were a family where he worked overtime to afford a $550 necklace. And then, a more sinister question bloomed in the darkness of his thoughts. This wasn't a plan for them. This was a plan for her. The deposit was in her name only. The condo was a 1-bedroom. This was an escape hatch, a fully furnished, beautifully appointed $389,000 escape hatch. He thought about the late nights, the work trips, the secret smiles at her phone, the man named Alex, the constant belittling of his life, his work, his worth. It wasn't just condescension, it was justification. She had been building a case against him in her own mind for years, painting him as small and unambitious to make her grand betrayal feel like a necessary, even deserved, evolution. 7 years. The invoice was dated 8 months ago, but the lie felt older, deeper. How long had she been planning this? How much money had she funneled away while telling him they were broke? The shared savings account she managed so diligently. It wasn't a family fund. It was her personal slush fund. Every dollar of his he'd trustingly deposited, Every sacrifice he'd made had gone to building her secret, separate life. The life where she wasn't the wife of just an electrician. The rain beat a steady rhythm against the windows. Darnell sat in the dim hallway, the receipt for a life he never knew he was funding lying flat in his palm. The shock was curdling into something else, something cold, hard, and terrifyingly clear.